Welcome to TRUST GBS. In each episode, we'll get together with other professionals and have fun talking about trust and estate matters. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, lawgbs.com. Now here are the hosts of TRUST GBS, Lori Bolander and Lauren Gallagher.
Hello, I'm Lori Bolander, and
I'm Lauren Gallagher.
And welcome to TRUST GBS, where we explore the practical, legal, and human sides of trust and estate planning. Today's episode is one of those conversations that sits right at the intersection of law and medicine and deeply personal choice. We're talking about end-of-life care and what it actually looks like in practice and how it aligns, and sometimes doesn't, with legal planning, and what professionals and families both need to understand about it. I know in my practice, this topic comes up a lot, and it's coming up more and more frequently. And to help us unpack all of that, we're joined by two guests that bring unique and incredibly important perspective. Dr. Donald Moore with Autonomy Health, who's an end-of-life specialist and works directly with patients and families navigating these decisions. And he's joined by Christa Folkers, Autonomy Health's program director. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're looking forward to this conversation. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Autonomy Health?
Well, thank you. I'll start with that. So Autonomy Health, Dr. Moore founded Autonomy Health 3 years ago. It is a medical practice that specializes in end-of-life planning and healthcare, specifically medical aid in dying. So a large percentage of the patients we see are seeking assistance with their death, and it is legal in California, and we help them with the process and are there with most of them bedside when they actually do pass.
Yeah, the legality of it is something I know a lot of people just in like when I'm having conversations with friends, they don't realize. They're like, well, is that legal in California? I'm like, yes. So it's one of the reasons we wanted to have you guys on, is just so that more people can learn about this. And then I have clients on the other end of the spectrum that are like, give me Dr. Moore's number right now. And they're like 55. And I'm like, okay, good, I guess.
Yeah. Or they say, I just kill me. Just kill me if I ever get to that point. Like, I'll work that way.
Not quite like that, but yes.
Yeah. And how do most of your patients and clients come to you guys?
Yeah, so I just want to also reiterate, it's been legal since 2016, so for 10 years this year. So it's really, it's a well-established law, and we have a great process that we'll, I'm sure, review throughout the podcast here. But how we find our patients, really, I'd say the majority of our referrals come through hospices locally here. We service all of Southern California, and we have a pretty big presence in the desert. We've had a couple of patients from like Santa Barbara area, but mostly San Diego County, and hospice referrals. We do get some referrals through our website. We're trying to be out in the community, sharing, the process and introducing ourselves to various different groups and organizations. Just to create awareness so that people know that we exist. And so sometimes we'll get referrals that way too, that they remember seeing us at whatever it might have been, and they access us.
Yeah. That way. So what is really the process for medical aid in dying, and, how does it actually work in practice?
Hey, I'm happy to tackle that one. So it's a lot of different for everybody. Like everybody we see, sort of has different needs and, works at different paces. And so, really every patient there's no real like set script to how the patients, progress through this. But, just sort of the basics of the law in California, the requirements are that, once somebody reaches out to us and, we learn a little about them, we have to set up 2 visits. So they have to have at least 2 visits with, me as the prescribing doctor or the attending physician. In addition to those 2, a second doctor has to come in and also, evaluate the patient, review their records, talk to them, have a visit, and say that, this other doctor also thinks that they qualify and are appropriate to go through this process. In addition to the visits, of course, because we live in America, there's some paperwork. We love paperwork. And so they do have to fill out a form that's the written request for aid in dying. That is just something that reviews, what it means to go through this process, and ensures that the patient knows and is aware of, what they're signing up for, what they're going through. And that form has to be witnessed by a couple people. Not only one of them can be related. It's really, there's a lot of safeguards in place to ensure that somebody's, again, appropriate and making this decision of their own, free will and volition. So once we get through all of the, the paperwork and the visits, at that point, patients are then able to get the medication. We're ready to submit the prescription, and they can fill it and have it on hand and sort of, have that security of knowing that it's there. It really helps a lot of people just sort of, feel more comfortable about where they're at in the progression of their disease. Or, they can also leave it at the pharmacy until they're ready to fill it. But once somebody's truly ready, and sometimes that's pretty soon after we do these visits, within days or a week, or sometimes it's months down the line. They work with our team to decide when, might be the right day and what that day might look like. We really try to do a good job of, planning that out for people, really seeing what they need to have a good death, which is, different for everybody. And then once that day comes, we provide support. So oftentimes I'm with the patients. Christa has also been at some ingestions. Sometimes we have doulas, death doulas who are present, music therapists, and we really try to work with patients and families to determine exactly what they need to have, what they would consider a good death. And so then they take this medication, and ultimately just, they fall asleep into a really, really deep, relaxed sleep. And the medication slows their breathing and slows their heart, and they pass away at home.
Wow.
That's kind of a brief overview of this.
It sounds like it could be very beautiful and definitely a lot less painful, and, people who are suffering from illnesses that they can't control. What I think one of the things that people don't really understand is the patient themselves has to kind of be the leader. Can you go into that a little bit? I think, I've had clients say, well, just put it in my healthcare directive. Like, that's what I want. I'm like, no, it doesn't go in there because you have to be the one to do that. So can you elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, that's something that we also get a lot. People are like, well, can I write about this ahead of time, put my wishes down, or like, just even when I decline, just have my family do it. They can just give it to me, or just give me the shot, doc. I hear all sort of variations of that. And to your point, it is really important that this is like a patient-driven process, and that they're in the driver's seat the entire way. When they make their first requests, when they make any subsequent requests, when they take the medication, they have to really be physically and mentally the ones driving this, this process.
So that's interesting because they need to have the wherewithal and the desire and the ability to convey and request and participate and drive it. Yet I think they have to have some diagnosis in order to qualify, correct? So how do those two things work together? Because it seems like one might prevent the other from happening.
Right. They do. They have to have, what we would call a terminal diagnosis. And so what that means is that, they have to have some condition where what we think is within 6 months of where we are at this time, they might naturally die from their disease. And so that, that can be challenging for some people, some people with neurological diseases like ALS or Parkinson's. They have to be in a window of time where they are considered at the end stage of the disease, but still be able to, make their own medical decisions. So they're the ones asking for it and they're aware of what they're doing. And then they also have to physically be able to self-administer the medication. They have to either drink it, or they can do a rectal administration, or go through a G tube, but they have to self-administer it.
So I would think that you have experienced situations where you knew what that patient wanted and somehow the timing didn't line up right. Have you?
Yes, it does happen, not infrequently. You know, I think that when you're dealing with patients who are on hospice, right, almost all of our patients are on hospice and are, you know, in the end stages of their conditions. It does happen that sometimes they progress either quicker than we may have hoped, or, you know, they just, you know, their disease is just progressing at its normal pace, and they, you know, miss what we would consider like the window of time when they are eligible and can do it. And that's not to say that they aren't still able to have a comfortable and good death. You know, we can
Right.
still, with good palliative care, with hospice care, still provide good deaths for many people. But a lot of our patients really crave that control, you know, that agency. They wish to be the ones that are in the driver's seat of their death. And so, you know, it is really important to a lot of people that we check in often and try and get them within that window.
I would imagine that not everybody, I mean, I think what you guys are doing is amazing. I really think that this is so important for our culture, for, you know, giving people, like you said, agency and control if they want it and need it. But I would think that there's other people who don't feel so great about that. Do you face backlash? Do you face, you know, people haters who don't love what you do?
I mean, there's always gonna be haters out there. I think, you know, haters are gonna hate. But, you know, I think, and, you know, Chris can talk to this too. I think in general, we find that, you know, most people, especially if they're able to sort of like see this to conclusion, or, you know, we're able to talk about some of the patients we have, oftentimes people do get it. You know, I think that there's a perception that, you know, this is something that is super controversial and that a lot of people are staunchly against.
Mm-hmm.
But what we've found is, you know, a lot of people understand it. You know, they may not love that their loved one's going through this, or that they may not love that it's, you know, if they're a practitioner that's part of this, you know, their medical system, but they do in some way understand why people would do it. So I don't know if Christa, if you would like to touch on that as well.
Yeah, thanks. Honestly, I think of people, I can think of, you know, relatives, close relatives, spouses, sons, daughters of our patients who, you know, even to kind of use their words, I'm thinking of someone I spoke with yesterday, you know, they're simply going through with their wishes. Like, that's how they're looking at this. They don't agree with it. They don't want them to, whatever they may say. And I think that we at Autonomy Health, Donnie especially, Dr. Moore, we do a fantastic job of explaining everything to the family, making sure that everyone is as comfortable as they can be.
Mm-hmm.
It truly is amazing once they are with the patient and it is happening, the flip that happens. And we got the most amazing letter from a patient yesterday. I spoke with someone on the phone yesterday as well, who was just, everything changed for him once he was there with his dad, and was able to, you know, to feel that feeling of giving his dad what his wishes were, and also being there with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he died. You know, it was a beautiful experience for him, and it flipped how he felt about it.
I think people that have been through the suffering stages of somebody in the end stages of those kinds of diseases, they get it, you know. And that's where a lot of my clients that have seen that or expressed to me, like, I don't want to do that, you know. And so I think it's an amazing choice that more people should know is available to them as well. Not to mention that, you know, sometimes the financial burden of getting through all of that can be huge for the family.
Right.
You know, and like you're saying, they get to choose how it all plays out. You know, you can have your favorite music, you can, you know, be with who you want to be with, all of the, you know, have your cat or your favorite pillow or whatever it is there, you know.
It's interesting, Lori, because we actually talk a lot amongst our team and then with families when it's appropriate and with other doctors too about how there is a component that is the suffering, right? Nobody wants to be in the position that they're in, but it really truly is more about the autonomy and the agency at the end of life. Because by the time they're reaching this point, they've been stripped of everything. They've been a part of a medical system. They've been, they've probably tried lots of different treatments, whatever it might be. And they're just feeling completely sort of helpless and not the version of themselves that they want to be, that they remember, that they want to be remembered for. And so giving them back the autonomy, just as you said, to choose how they go, it changes how they feel about their death, if you will.
Absolutely. You guys helped one of my clients, and you may not know this, but after she passed, we found a kind of letter she wrote to herself before she passed away, and it was, "I'm in control. I get to choose how I go." And it was very, it was very empowering, and she was a woman who'd been through a lot of things in her life and probably had to tell herself, give herself pep talks through a lot of different things in her life. And, I think it was very, it made me feel like, okay, she really, got to choose how she went, and that meant something to her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So,
Yeah. You're talking about, I hadn't heard about the letter though. It's really special. That's the good stuff. That's the human aspect of this. There's something really truly human about what we try to do.
Yeah. That's one of my questions too, is how do you, personally navigate like the emotional weight of what you guys do?
We talk a lot about this too, because, it's what people ask us a lot. How do you do that? Oh my gosh, how are you with so many people, right? And it's being able to go into a situation and hold space for all the feelings, and know that it's not technically these are not our emotions, but we hold space for them. We're there with them, and then really kind of building into the core values and the ethos of our practice, taking care of each other, making sure that we're looking out for each other in whatever way we talk. Nothing's off the table to talk about in terms of our own feelings. We recently talked to one of our friends that's kind of in the community about maybe doing like a grief for caregivers type of session, so that it's only people to process. So we are well aware of the need to process through the feelings that we have, and also how important it is that we hold that space as sacred for that family, and be neutral and just be there for them. I will share though, we did start kind of a ritual that we're proud of at Autonomy Health. We put together just a glass bowl with rocks and shells, and we actually put the client that you were talking about, Lori, she had given some cards with some inspirational sayings, and
yes, I have those in my house too.
Put those in there. And we try to have that as we try to never lose the profound nature of what we're sharing with people and giving to people. And we have that as sort of a remembrance of our patients as well, that we just try to pay attention to and be sort of reverent about as much as we possibly can.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely you have to weigh, you can't be completely insensitive, right? Because this is something you have to be present and emotionally involved with the process, but not let it weigh you down too much personally too. But you also get to do a lot of fun things too. I know you've done a lot of bucket list things with your clients, and I think that's so cool.
Dr.
Skydiving with the
Yeah. Oh yeah. We really, it was part of the, it's part of that control, part of the exploration of, a completed life for people. Because much of the process, while it's, screening and getting to know them as a person, making sure they're qualified and they're appropriate, a lot of our process is getting to know these people as people and what, has sort of been the important, meaningful, profound parts of their life, and anything that we feel they might need in the time they have left, which again is sometimes days, but sometimes weeks, months. Even rarely people we don't have crystal balls, so some people are around for years after they qualify. They rebound.
Yeah.
And so what are these things that we can really lean into and give, maximize quality with the time that they have left? And sometimes we get to do really exciting, sometimes grandiose things, like go skydiving with patients, which I think is the thing that you have in mind, which was so fun. That was something that she really wanted to do before she died, and it was something we were able to provide space for, and really allow her to be present for. Sometimes, or often, I would say it's really just people want quality time though with their people. I think that what we're able to do is encourage patients to bring in family, maybe in the area, out of the area, facilitate people to be present who are important to them. And that's, sometimes people have one thing that they're like, oh, I've always wanted to do this one thing. I've always wanted to go, I had a patient a couple of years ago, actually, who wanted to go to the safari. He'd never gone to safari park. He wanted to go on safari, but we couldn't do that. And so he'd never been to a safari park either. And we were able to sort of set up a private tour for him a couple of years ago.
Oh, fun. It's
just sometimes there's things like that, but often it really is just being present with the people you love.
Yeah.
And just encouraging, leaning into that, that special connection that people have.
For sure. Yeah. Do you see the aid in dying kind of evolving in the next 5 or 10 years, or what would you see changing, or changes we could see coming?
I do. I think from what I've seen, there's, I think, a recognition that, this is something that people want access to, that there are, appropriate safeguards around and it's not being misused. And I think that what we're going to see is more states, adopt laws that provide for medical aid in dying. And we've already seen last December, Illinois and New York passing their first laws, and Delaware also last year. And I think, we'll continue to see that, that grow. We have an aging population that really likes having control. They I think you mentioned earlier, they've seen some rough deaths maybe, or, boomers really like control. We know this.
Yeah, we can attack. And so we do their estate planning.
We know this to be true. And they should have it. We should have it. We all should. And I think we'll continue to see it, proliferate as it becomes something that is just part of the conversation of end of life care.
Yeah. I love that it's becoming mainstream and it is an avenue and an option, because in 2016, it felt so taboo. Even though we passed it, it felt taboo. And anecdotally, I don't know this from personal experience, but it seemed like I was hearing that it was, all the laws were there. It was hard to find the doctor, hard to find the pharmacist, nobody really wanted to touch it, even though it was legal. But now everybody's sort of kind of becoming used to this and embracing the idea. They might not personally use it. They might not personally need to use it, but it's there.
Yeah. And I hope it helps evolve our societal, kind of avoidance of death altogether too, right? Because that's another problem in all of this, is that just generally we don't want to talk about dying. And I think as we do have the aging population and more people are going through this, that will become a better conversation. That tends to be a problem in our field, which is why there's a lot of litigation, right? Mom never told anybody that she left the house to the neighbor or whatever, Right. So because they don't talk about it. And so hopefully that'll change in our culture as well. And then that will probably just naturally lead to more legal advances in this area of the law.
Maybe an expansion of it.
Yeah, and the expansion of it. I have clients that say, like, Lauren was saying, like, I'll just put it in my healthcare directive. And, I tell clients, I go, well, that's not legal right now, but you know what, someday it might be.
Yeah.
As long as it's well documented and all of that, maybe that will be something that can happen. Until then, you just have to have the agreement about, the pillow over the head or something.
Yeah, right.
Joking, I'm probably not a good joke in this context.
The four of us can joke about it.
The proverbial pillow. We'll use the metaphorical pillow.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true. We do hope that people will talk about it more. Talking about death doesn't bring death sooner. Talking about death is not fun, but also, once you start to have these conversations with people in your life, they become less scary. They become a point of connection and, community support, because we all die, every single person born.
It's happening to all of us. Like, this is like
happening all the time.
May or may not happen. Like, it's going to happen.
It will happen.
Well, and we have
completely embrace it. There's like beautiful rituals and things like that. And yes, we just have a fear of talking about it, a fear of it. It's scary. I'm not trying to say that it might not be or isn't scary, but just like you said, talking about it, normalizing it, coming up with your plan, your personal plan is empowering.
It's definitely empowering. Yeah. We also find that, like a lot of times we find that once the family is talking about it, the patient has actually been thinking about it, been thinking about how to bring it up, has been considering it in their own mind, in their own body for a long time. And so again, it's like, gosh, I really wish that there was more comfort in bringing it up, because if we knew about it earlier, we would have had more time to help them plan whatever, it's just, and that it brings comfort to the family once they realize how long the patient's been thinking about it. But oftentimes they don't bring it up until right at the very end.
And that was one of my questions. Like, if someone listening, takes one step, to be better prepared for this, what should they do?
They should.
I think that would be,
yes,
absolutely plan ahead. Let your wishes be known. It's so, we follow a lot of patients through this, and, nothing we can do. We're also very aware nothing we can do can, fully alleviate the grief and the loss that comes with somebody in your life dying. That's just going to be there, since you're losing a part of yourself in this process. But, what we do find is that people who have discussed it ahead of time, who are aware that, this law exists, that this thing exists, this, medical aid in dying, and are better prepared approaching it, that that their families do better afterwards, in grieving. They've just had time to get used to this idea. They're so aware of the wishes of the patient, and there's just time to sort of like reconcile the emotions that come with approaching that loss. And we find that people do better when there's been more preparation and earlier awareness ahead of time. So, hopefully with things like this,
they can bond over it. It seems like a funny concept, but right, there's like, you were all part of it, and it was special, and all those emotions were there together.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, let's plan it. We plan births, we plan baby showers, we plan weddings, we plan birthdays. There's all these things that are part of life that are, very human rituals that we engage in. And this is another one that I think people can get meaning from, planning and coming together with.
But
we were telling you, we went to Egypt, and in Egypt, they start building the king's tomb as soon as he goes on the throne. Yeah. And as long as he rules, they're building his tomb, which is why they're like so amazing. And interestingly, he never sees it while he's alive.
Yeah. He picks the location, and then the next time he goes, he's dead.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
isn't that interesting?
Yes.
It's interesting.
So also a lot of faith in those people that are preparing that tomb,
Right.
you know, but that they
That's
literally like
true, yeah,
one of the first acts is to go pick out where they're going to go when they die.
Yeah.
Oh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Lori, I was going to say, you know, so the first part is planning, right? And you all are part of that, but it's this, the second part, and possibly more important, is talking about it. So it's not enough to just go to an attorney and, you know, do your will and trust. It's talking about not only your will and trust, but your wishes, right? This so that your family feels confident. If something happens to you, they're like, oh yeah, I know what my mom would have wanted. We talked about this. She looked me in the eye and said, don't have me on a feeding tube, or whatever it might be.
And that's the one document when we're preparing these estate plans that for sure I'm like, you really need to talk to the person, because it's, you know, especially if they're doing the whole withdrawing life support, that can be a very tough thing for a daughter or a spouse or, you know, whoever you're appointing. So it's really helpful for them to know, yes, I know for sure this is what they wanted. It's not just a box checked on this form, you know?
Right. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's everybody. I think everybody should have advance directives on file where they put their wishes down. You know, everybody should have their will and trust done. You know, go see people like Lori.
You know, well, I don't own anything, you know, I don't need anything. And it's like, if you have a body, you need a plan, right? Because at a very minimum. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of intersection in what we do. Well, this has been such an interesting conversation, and I thank you both for joining us today. You can contact Dr. Moore and Christa through their website at autonomyhealth.org. Thanks for spending some time with us on Trust GBS. These aren't always easy topics, but they're the most important ones to get right. So you can find us at Law GBS and more about us and our attorneys. And thank you again to Dr. Moore and Christa for joining us today. And then we'll be back
Thanks for joining us
with another conversation. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for us.
Yeah.
You've been tuning in to Trust GBS with your hosts, Lori Bolander and Lauren Gallagher. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, lawgbs.com. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and sharing this show with others.